Rebecca, you heard from Christine Lagarde this morning from the European Central Bank, and I want you to talk about what you read from that. But first, here's Jim Grant, Grant's Interest Rate Observer founder, He was with us last week, and he made a compelling comment to me when I asked him about the Fed's next path. Watch this. You're not expecting a cut in rates anytime soon.
No, they might decide that 3-ish is fine. They might
3% inflation.
Yes, it's concern over the inflation rate and to focus on financial stability as they would define it. But however, I think there's also a chance, Maria, this year that the Fed raises if they are confronted with an accelerating rate of inflation. They might feel they have no choice. And who's to say that the 3.2% thing couldn't go up? We have an $80 oil price, no longer 70.
Wow, the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, that is certainly not a narrative priced into this market right now.
Not at all. But I will say, Maria, the thing about Lagarde's comments this morning that struck me, I watched them live, and basically she stated even if, and it was said like this, even if we do agree to one rate cut, there was absolute no guarantee that there will be an additional subsequent rate cut. So it seems to me like they're getting very cautious, really pushing back against this worldwide pressure to lower rates. And I have to say, too, if we look at the Federal Reserve minutes that have come out so far, the fact that they state that they expect additional bank failures this year really indicates to me that they're expecting the almost $1 trillion of commercial real estate mortgages that have to be refinanced this year to have to actually be refinanced at higher rates. And therefore, that's going to cause liquidity issues at obviously our small and medium-sized regional banks. And it will roll up because there's quite a large portfolio of CRE at the large banks as well. So they are expecting this, Maria, because I think that they're pricing and holding rates higher longer.
Keith, even yesterday when I spoke with Jeffrey Lacker, the former president of the Richmond Federal Reserve, he said, look, right now, the Fed is not as restrictive as these markets think they are. They're not. In other words, he suggested they could become more restrictive. So what do you want to do as an investor when you see that kind of commentary mixed in with the moves that we're seeing in, for example, the market and AI? NVIDIA closed higher again yesterday. It unveiled its latest Blackwell AI chip during the annual AI conference. The CFO confirmed that the new chip will ship out this year, but the cost is more than people expected. It's going to cost more than $30,000 per unit. This stock is on fire, continues to do so. It's up better than 1% right now, Keith. So you say the AI bubble may be worse than the tech bubble of the 1990s.
No, it's totally different than the 1990s, And so our advice to clients, we've been talking about this all week, all month with them, is now is the time when you focus on the best companies. You take a deep breath. We have a saying, when in doubt, zoom out. This is where you got to make decisions as an investor. Forget what the Fed's going to do. Forget what about politics. Put your effort on the CEOs who are putting up good numbers, products the world can't live without, services they can't live without. NVIDIA is a great example. We're going to have large customers. AI is in its infancy. They're buying every chip that company can make for the foreseeable future. It's dirt cheap compared to where it's going.
That's incredible. Dirt cheap. I mean, Adam, this stock is up 250% over the last year. And a lot of people compare this AI euphoria to what we saw in the .com era, which we all lived through, right? I asked Howard Lutnick about it. And I basically put that question to him. He's the chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. I said, is the euphoria in NVIDIA and in AI a bubble? Here's what he said.
Oh, good.
You don't have the
maybe not.
He said, of course it's a bubble. He said, of course it's a bubble. Well, it's going to go on and on.
I wish he were here to basically go up against Keith and me, and I'll tell you why. In 2000, the NASDAQ was trading at 600 times. The price-to-earnings ratio was 600. Right now, by the way, the S&P 500 is trading at 21 times. And with regards to NVIDIA, which you know I love, it trades at 30 times earnings. 30 times earnings growing 100%. Keith is right. NVIDIA is cheap. I recently bought more.
You bought more because you sold it.
Yes, I sold it too soon, so I bought it back. But you have to admit when you're wrong. I sold it at $675. I bought it back at $875.
Oh, but you initially bought it at
$175.
Oh my God, $175. He bought NVIDIA. How do you like that trade?
And he took the capital gain too. Wow.
Well, but here's the thing. There's three defining characteristics that people really need to think about. The 90s were driven by super high leverage companies you'd never heard of making products. Everybody remembers that talking sock commercial. And CEOs were in love with leverage. Now you've got large, very profitable, very successful companies leading the charge. The losses are limited to incubators. Nobody's ever heard of it for the most part. Aren't public anyway, so the public's not on the hook. And finally, leverage is a dirty word in the C-suite when it comes to excessive stuff. It's functional leverage now. So this is, again, a game that is just getting started.
All right. We will be watching it along the way. Keith, good to see you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keith Fitzgerald. And your morning mover this morning is a stock we've talked about in the past. Temu parent company, Pinduoduo, up in the pre-market. Shares of this Chinese online retailer higher by 3.75% after its fourth quarter earnings report this morning. Analysts estimating a quarterly revenue rise of over $79 billion at $11.45 a share. PDD is facing pressure this year as Congress could ban Temu in the U.S. because it is a Chinese company. It is the owner of Temu, which is going right at companies like Walmart. This stock is up 63% in the last year. We are watching it this morning. Well, welcome back. It is time for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me right now is Payne Capital Management President and the host of Payne Points of Wealth podcast, Ryan Payne. Also with me is Adam Johnson and Rebecca Walser. Great to see you. Thank you for joining the conversation, Ryan.
Thanks, Maria. Great to be here.
We are here on Fed Day, day 2 of the Federal Reserve's meeting. Let's take a look at futures this morning, Rebecca. Dow Industrial's down about 18, but the Nasdaq's up 36. Pretty good day yesterday. Take a look at the triple-digit move that the Dow had yesterday. 320 points higher at 4 o'clock on Wall Street, up about almost 1% ahead of the Federal Reserve's rate decision and commentary today. Interest rates are pulling back. The 10-year now at 4.28%, ahead of what we're expecting to be the Fed holding interest rates steady this month, and Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell giving us some clarity at 2:30 p.m. Eastern about where the Fed heads next. But look, there have been a lot of warning signs here and, commentary about don't think that this is just a shoo-in, that the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates all this, multiple times. That's what's been priced into the market. Is that what you expect?
Yeah, Maria, I expect, literally we have a 0% chance of an actual cut today. I don't think anybody's expecting that. It could happen as a weird thing. But, Lagarde's comments this morning, I think we will hear a similar tone to Powell. And that will be that data. And don't expect, even if we start to cut, she was very clear. Even if we start to cut, do not expect that just means, you'll get successive 2 more cuts in a row because the market's pricing in 3 still.
Well, we played the soundbite from Jim Grant earlier, James Grant, the founder of Interest Rate Observer. But he said the Fed could actually raise. But then we heard from Jeffrey Lacker, the former president of the Richmond Federal Reserve, who said a similar thing, which I want to take note of because he's saying, don't think the Fed is so restrictive. It's not that restrictive. Here's Jeffrey Lacker with me yesterday.
If you look at spending, you look at the inflation picking up, you look at the strong labor market, it just doesn't seem like policy's that restrictive right now. So there's a chance this isn't going to be enough to get inflation down to 2% this year. The real federal funds rate, the inflation-adjusted interest rate that's neither constrictive or expansionary. A decade ago, estimates were about 0.5%. On that, and now estimates are between 1 and 2.5%. If you take those figures and add the current inflation rate of 3%, you get 4 to 5.5%. Compared to that, the funds rate of 5.3% isn't terribly restrictive.
So this is the kind of commentary I'm expecting today, Adam. Yeah. I think they're going to have to backpedal out of rate cuts all the way a bit today because of that hotter than expected inflation data last week.
Yeah, it's true. They're steady as she goes, really, I think, has been the message, and I think will continue to be the message. But I'd like to point out there are 4 measures of inflation. 3 of them, PPI, GDP prices, and the PCE, are either at or below 2%, the Fed's target. It's only CPI that's still above 3. Now, that's the one that we all have to deal with, Consumer Price Index, right? So that's the one that's in our face and we see. But my point is, it's going the right way. It's just not there yet. And that's why I say steady as she goes. We're making progress, needs to say Mr. Powell, but we're not there yet.
Talk about expensive. Is NVIDIA expensive right now? I mean,
no,
when you look at
not.
where this stock is, it unveiled its latest Blackwell AI chip yesterday during the annual AI conference. And the CFO confirmed that this new chip will ship out this year, but it's going to cost more than $30,000 per unit. Take a look at the stock this morning, up again another 1%. I know you own this this stock.
Yes.
You still think it has room to run?
Yeah, Ryan thinks I'm crazy, but I'll tell you why. There was a time when NVIDIA was expensive. Ironically, NVIDIA was expensive at about $300 or $400 because the earnings were so much smaller. Then a funny thing happened. The earnings tripled, which justified the increase in the stock price. And the relationship between the two, the price to earnings ratio, is now only 30 times. So you can buy the S&P 500 at 21 times earnings, growing at 7 or 8%, or you can buy NVIDIA at 30 times earnings, growing 100%.
Wow.
So from that point of view, I think NVIDIA actually is cheap. My target was 900. I raised it to $1,200 because I think they're going to generate $40 in earnings next year. So a 30 multiple on $40 in earnings is $1,200.
Wow. So are you on the other side of that trade?
My hair's on fire right now. I think the problem is, when do those earnings expectations get too high? Analysts were way too low before they were completely wrong. Why are they right now? Now they're falling over themselves to raise their estimates. I'll
tell you why. Because something has changed, and that something is a new chip that's now capable. This is incredible. 20 quadrillion. Quadrillion is 16 zeros. A chip capable of 20 quadrillion calculations per second. Mm-hmm. That's 30 times faster than the competition. And that's what enables AI. And by the way, it uses 4% of the electricity of the old chips. So it's way more efficient. So that's what sets NVIDIA apart, and that's why people are willing to pay $30,000 for a chip.
Are you willing to pay that, Ryan?
I'm not. On the other side of that trade, respectfully so, I think, this goes back to the Fed. I think the fact that the Fed needs to be more restrictive here because there's still so much pent-up exuberance. There's so much money out there. Like, look at Bitcoin right now at 63,000. MicroStrategy, the company is like kind of a proxy for Bitcoin. They just raised $600 million to buy more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because, it's just like, if you look at where liquidity is right now, it's extremely high. We always talk about that $6.1 trillion sitting in cash.
Yeah.
I think,
and we've talked about that because that is oftentimes seen as a runway. Mm-hmm. You've got that wiggle room to go take the money out of money markets, put it in the stock market, or put it in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is down better than $10,000 from the all-time high. But look at where we are. We're still talking about $63,000. And you just mentioned MicroStrategy. This is the crypto firm, the largest corporate Bitcoin holder, also extending losses, Ryan. That stock down about 3.25%. So what do you want to do now?
What I would do now is I think you have to be very, very careful. I think at this point, look, I think Adam's correct in the sense that if the Fed does cut this year, there's a lot of cash out there that could push stocks like NVIDIA even higher. But I've said this before, and it's a lesson to learn, is it's okay to be early in a bubble. And I generally think we're in a bubble.
To sell early.
Sell early, right. Yeah. Because remember, it took you 15 years to make up the difference when the NASDAQ actually burst back in 2000, whereas if you bought small caps, you bought international, you doubled your money over that time frame, valuation's a lot lower. Same thing today, small caps are a lot cheaper. Max diversification is the only way to protect yourself, in my opinion, right now.
All right, we will leave it there. Great conversation, guys. Thank you so much. Ryan, good to see you. Thanks for joining the conversation. Adam and Rebecca, you're with us all morning, and we're grateful. Thank you for that. Quick break. Top Environment and Public Works Committee Republican in West. The appeals court was fast, Rebecca. It was just last night that we heard Dan Patrick, the deputy governor, lieutenant governor in Texas, saying we're going to start arresting people immediately.
Yeah, it's almost like that was a response to the Supreme Court. I actually have to dive in, Maria, to the technical legal reasons. The Supreme Court, it wasn't a final decision. It was while the litigation is continuing, we feel that Texas they didn't enjoin them or prevent them from starting to enforce it. And now this appeals court has, which, again, to go immediately against the USSC is very alarming, and we have to really understand why. But this is the election right here in a nutshell. This border, this is an invasion, and then on top of this new decision from a district judge yesterday, district court judge stating about they are allowed to have weapons. If you have 10 million people coming to your country, and now they can have the right to bear arms. Now we've got an armed potential. What else can we call it but an invasion?
Yeah, what you're referring to is an Obama-appointed Illinois judge ruling that illegal immigrants can own a firearm and carry a firearm. The judge saying that a federal prohibition on illegal migrants owning firearms is unconstitutional when applied to a non-citizen who has never been convicted of a violent crime. This is incredible, Adam. To me, this seems like insanity.
I understand why you say that, but I actually support that, and I'll tell you why. The right to bear arms is the law of the land. It's guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, as is freedom of speech, as is freedom of religion, as is a right to a fair trial and a jury by your peers. So if you support the Bill of Rights and all of the guarantees that sacred piece of paper ensures for Americans, and you respect it as the law of the land, you have to ensure it for everyone who is on this land. As awkward as that sounds, and I tell you why. If you say, yeah, but things have changed, and so we can't do it for this group right now because this immigration thing's crazy. Well, now you're actually chipping away at the cornerstone of this great country, and you can't do that because of circumstances in the moment.
So breaking into the country illegally is not chipping away at anything. We're talking about illegal.
These are separate issues. There shouldn't be illegals coming in across the border. But once they're here, they are in this land, and there are laws in this land guaranteed by the Bill of Rights, and you have to respect that out of consistency. They shouldn't be here in the first place.
Right.
But that's a separate issue.
Well, it's unfortunately all these issues now are one issue because you've got illegal people from foreign countries coming into this country, some of whom we don't know what their motivations are, what their intentions are, and now they're able to hold a gun. Thomas, your reaction. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Well, I'm sat here like a fool because I came in legally. I think, I should have swam the river and I'd have got a hotel and a credit card and all these things.
That's right.
But, it is crazy. And if you think about the politics of this, who is supporting this? There aren't that many Democrats out there that are really calling for an open border and calling for giving guns to migrants, these things. But the Biden administration are pursuing it so hard. It's a real question. Why are they chasing this so much? It's not popular with anyone. So we're not quite sure why they're after this so desperately.
Well, we have some idea. We have some idea because when the census is done and the census captures all of the people living in a certain region, if there are more people in Democrat-run sanctuary cities, then they'll get more congressional seats. So the congressional Democrats are actually winning on all of this when it comes to the census. Whether or not these people are going to be allowed in some way, shape, or form to vote is another question. But there's a lot of people who expect that is the reason they're doing this.
It's looking very likely, yeah. I didn't want to believe it, but it's looking very likely.
It sure is. This is a developing story this morning. We are just getting started. We're going to be following this breaking news all morning long, so stay right here. Rebecca, he forgot to mention when Jill Biden called the Hispanic community tacos.
Yes, I did see that as well.
You did?
Maria, I think actions over words. Obviously, under Trump's economic policies, we had the lowest, Latino unemployment rates historically ever. And I'm not saying that they have worsened substantially, but what I am saying is this administration is pushing corporations to let go of U.S. citizens' employment, like Tyson Foods, so that they can get $10,000 tax credits to hire illegal migrants. So what is that doing to the Latino community? I mean, and so it's actions, Maria, it's not words.
Look, we can talk about all of these communities and where they are in terms of Trump versus Biden, but this is just more, in my view, Adam, this is just more division. Okay, divide us over
divide
everything. Rich versus poor. Homosexual versus heterosexual. Latino versus black versus white. I mean, we all want the same things. Will you stop it?
It's so.
Please, Latinos want exactly what Italians want, exactly what Germans want. We all want prosperity, safety for our families.
Of course.
So just stop it.
Of course. It's so insulting. The fact that they would actually call the campaign Latinos con, which is Spanish for with. Latinos con Biden and Harris. I mean, Thomas, you're a Brit. Maybe you could, go create a Brits for Biden. And Rebecca, you're blonde. Blondes for Biden. And I'll be blue blazer guy for Biden.
Exactly.
Come on. It's insulting.
It's insulting, but it's a way to divide and conquer.
Absolutely.
Thomas, that is what they're doing. Divide and conquer. Put the country against, one side of the country because of this one thing in one group. Like I said, rich versus poor, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And it was 40 years ago that Reagan said Latinos are Republicans who just don't know it yet. Well, it's looking like now today they are knowing it. 46% of them are saying they're going to vote for Trump. So it is turning. And as you saw, he literally said it. I'm desperate. He said, I need you guys. So they're really struggling there. But look at this. There's 35 people in a Mexican restaurant and that's a Biden rally, and look at what Trump is pulling in. It's getting embarrassing.
That is funny.
Point.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just another indication of how the administration is worried. Really worried to look at all of these swing state groups, whether it's Latinos, blacks, whites, whatever, they are increasingly going for Trump.
They are, Maria, and I think this administration's policy of intentionally allowing people to come in, I've determined now, I think that I'm putting it all together, even if they don't actually get them to vote in a federal election, because they've been voting in state elections in like Illinois for years, but they do want the urban centers repopulated for the census. You're 100% right on that. So I just think that overall this is an attack against Americans.
Yeah, we did a piece on Sunday Morning Futures looking at the census and how the census changes and congressional districts change depending on what the census number shows. So that's right. They want all citizens to be counted in the census, and that gets more congressional Democrat seats. So, yeah, maybe the jig is up. Maybe that's why the border is wide
Well,
open.
and by the way, maybe it's not just counting citizens in the census, but people.
All people. Population.
Yeah, people, that's what I meant.
I mean, isn't it just amazing? And you were the one who really
not
shined the
just
spotlight.
legal citizens, all people.
Well, and you, Maria, 2 weeks ago shined the spotlight on what's happening in San Francisco, where the local elections board has actually put a Chinese national who barely speaks English and is not a U.S. citizen on the elections board.
Yes.
What in the world is going on?
Can
with
you
this
imagine?
country?
Kelly Wong she is now on the federal elections board in San Francisco. They did the whole ceremony in Chinese, Thomas.
Oh my God! To accommodate her.
Yeah, to accommodate her.
I saw it, and and I'm a green card now, but I imagine I could walk into a voting booth and I could probably vote. It wouldn't be that hard. You don't need ID, you don't need any of these things, and they're so against putting these rules in. Why won't they allow these things to take place?
AG Merrick Garland said that he's going to vow to fight voter ID. Now, how long did it take you to get the green card in terms of your own process, in terms of becoming a citizen? Tell us about your journey.
So I've been in the US for 4 years. I was very lucky because I'm on a good visa, so it was much easier than it would have been if I'd have come in, on a H-1B or one of these things. But it's complicated and it's expensive. It takes a long time and it's really expensive. And as I say, I should have just swam the river.
Well, you did it the legal way, and now you've got thousands of people jumping ahead of you in line, and they are here.
They cost a lot of money.
Exactly. We're just getting started. No, actually, they won't, Rebecca, because the appeals decision came on after that. Now, this is just temporary while we understand where this is going, correct?
Yeah, but Maria, it's bizarre, honestly. The Fifth Circuit to come back hours after the Supreme Court said, no, you can go ahead and enforce, and in joining that enforcement again, it's really, I'd have to look back in case law, but it seems to me unprecedented that you would have a lower level appeals court, Circuit Court of Appeals, Fifth Circuit, go against what the Supreme Court hours earlier had just majority ruled.
Whose idea is this? Who would allow your country to have absolutely no borders whatsoever and allow anybody who wants to come in? For a long time, I was thinking that the Obama administration was really running things, telling Biden what to do. But it seems that there is a real rift between Obama and Biden. Maybe that's why, because Obama's pushing Susan Rice and his team to run everything, and Biden maybe is trying to push back. But we know that an Obama-appointed Illinois judge ruled that illegal immigrants can own firearms. The judge said that the federal ban on illegals owning firearms is unconstitutional if applied to a non-citizen who's never been convicted of a violent crime. So you made the case, look, this is the law of our land.
Yes.
You can't say to one person you can have a gun and to another person you can't. It's for people in general. But do you change that opinion at all, Adam, when you take into the fact that we don't know who's coming in? There have been people on the terrorist watch list coming in. Should they be able to hold a firearm?
Yes. Because that is enshrined by the Bill of Rights in the same way that they have a right to free speech. They have a right to walk into any church that they want to and worship as they so choose. If they are arrested, they are entitled to a trial. They are innocent until proven guilty. These are rights enshrined by the Constitution.
Wow.
And we can't change them simply because the political moment has changed and gotten completely out of control. That's
Unless
a different
your name
issue.
is Joe Biden. Unless your name is Joe Biden. Because if your name is Joe Biden, you can blow off the Supreme Court who said that forgiving student debt is unconstitutional. You can blow off the border, which is allowing all these illegals to come into the country. So everything you're saying is right, unless your name is Joe Biden.
Unless your name is Joe Biden and you have presidential authority to do as you wish. The good news...
Well, no, he doesn't have the authority to blow off the Supreme Court. That's just not true. He doesn't have the authority to blow off but he is doing it. And I'm wondering who's running things. I want to ask you, Thomas, since you're British, and I want to ask you what you think about what happened the other day. Former President Obama made a surprise visit to 10 Downing Street for an informal meeting, we're told, with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. We don't know if it's informal or formal, by the way, but this is a former president meeting with a sitting Prime Minister of the UK. I'm sure they've talked about how they're going to plot to take down Donald Trump, but what is your reaction to this?
Well, I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump was out there meeting with sitting leaders? There'd be outrage. The media would be going crazy.
Right.
But, you know, this plays into, if there was ever a question of who is really running the show, I think it's very obvious that Obama is behind a lot of these decisions that are being made, leading the administration. And that's why he's out there meeting with world leaders to, you know, relay probably some of the concerns that people have that Trump may be coming back in. You know, people around the world are worrying what's going to happen. But yeah, you know, it is a double standard. If Trump was out doing this, if he was meeting with the French president, if he was
I saw an open letter on Twitter on behalf, dear Mr. Obama, on behalf of the British public, we would like to politely request you F off to whichever sinister evil island you've flown into from your luxury private jet. People in Britain were mad.
No, well, this started when he came over in the middle of the Brexit vote and came over and told the British people how to vote in their country. He said, if you vote for this, you will be the back of the line for a trade deal. And we've seen that. The Biden administration won't even engage with the UK. There's no trade deal on the table. So much for the special relationship. That is long dead.
Wow, that's such a great point. And when Trump came in, Trump said, guess who's going to be first in line for a trade deal? The UK.
Right. Yep. Exactly.